Hi guys, what's up? Natasha here. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, what's up? Today's video is going to be all about my tonsillectomy experience. As you can read by the title, I'm going to be sharing my experience, giving some tips and some advice where I can, and answering a bunch of your questions that I got off Instagram. So without further ado, let's get started. Disclaimer before we start this video, life is not the same for everybody. Medical experiences, medical recovery, life in general is going to be different for everybody. So I'm telling you tips and things that I experienced, but understand that this is personal to me and this is not going to be the same for everybody. I'm not saying that everybody has the exact same recovery and exact same experience and blah, 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 blah as me, because I'm not. And I want to make that very, very clear. Originally, I didn't know if I wanted to make this video just my experience or if I wanted to answer questions, because I don't want to touch on the same topics multiple times and make you guys bored, but I decided I'm just gonna do both. So if this video is lengthy, and you can tell because the time is somewhere in here, if it's lengthy, grab a snack, hop on the couch, and hang out with me. I'm on my bed in a cozy sweater. Okay, by the way, this is my new room. I don't know why I'm doing this. This is my new room. Obviously, you guys know I just moved into a new apartment, but this is my new little setup for sit-down videos. Before I get into the whole experience and everything, I do want to preface and kind of explain to you guys why I got the tonsillectomy. I don't want to go into too much detail because medical stuff is obviously very personal, but I know so many of you guys have been asking, especially on my YouTube, why I'm always sick, why am I getting the tonsillectomy, all that stuff. So I thought I would just kind of explain to you guys a little bit of before this all came to be. If you've been following me for a while, you obviously know how sick I get and how frequently I get sick. And it is the most annoying thing, or was the most annoying thing in my life, hopefully, because after this experience, I'm hoping it doesn't happen as often. The past 2 years have been honestly probably the toughest 2 years of my life physically. I have spent more time sick in my bed rather than hanging out with friends or doing work or filming or whatever. And it is crazy to me how many times I've caught it on camera where like I'll be fine and then in the next clip I'll be sick in a vlog. And if you guys have seen a few of my vlogs, you know what I'm talking about, but that is real life. So basically for the past 2 years, like I said, I have been dealing with being sick every 2 weeks, and it could be anything from a virus to tonsillitis to strep to a cold. I'm just constantly sick, 2 weeks on and about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks off, but it's consistent. I never had like a break of like a month or 2 months where I would not be sick. And it got to the point where my friends and I, we would joke about it, how often I would be sick, because it was absurd. And my mom didn't understand it, I didn't understand it. I was really terrified of getting sick because basically my tonsils were making life hell for me, straight up. So that's just a little bit of why I decided to get my tonsils. And I honestly hate saying the word decided because this has been something that I've wanted to do for so long, I can't even tell you. And I'm gonna get into why I wasn't able to sooner, because that's also a question. But I was seeing doctor after doctor, episode after episode, scans, blood work, doing everything I possibly could, antibiotics, whatever, and I just could not figure it out. And there was not a single doctor that would encourage me or give me the thumbs up, green light that they would take my tonsils out. Especially being an adult, it's not something that a lot of doctors look at and say, I'll take your tonsils out as an adult. If you're a kid, it's a lot different. So I want to make that clear, because I know a lot of people are saying, well, it's so easy to get your tonsils out, but it's not if you're an adult. But a few months ago, I saw a doctor who took one look at my tonsils and said he would take them out. And honestly, that is the biggest blessing. I think it was one of the happiest moments. Literally, I was so happy when I heard that he would take my tonsils out, because when you have two demons that are living inside of your throat, the only thing you want to do is get them out. And when someone tells you they will do it for you, you were so excited, and I was so excited. I've actually had my surgery 3 weeks ago today. So 3 weeks ago today, I showed up to the hospital and both my parents came with me. I got into the pre-op room and they hooked me up to some IVs. I took some medication and then they rolled me into the surgery room. I obviously got put under anesthesia and the surgery total time was about 45 minutes, so not that long. And I got rolled out and I woke up. Honestly, my memory is not the best from the first day because obviously when you get put under and you have so much medication running through you, everything's kind of like a blur. So there's like spurts of things that I remember, but not a lot. I do remember waking up crying, which don't be scared. Don't think you're gonna cry when you wake up. But for some reason, when I wake up after I've been put under anesthesia, I always cry. Like I cried when I got my wisdom teeth out. I cried when I got my tonsils removed, but I don't remember crying. I just wake up and I've been crying for a while. So anyways, so then I got some Capri Sun from the nurse and she told me to drink it up and kind of just constantly have something cold running through my throat, water, juice, something like that. I don't really know how long I was technically awake because I don't really remember, but I'm gonna say that I was there for probably an hour after surgery, maybe 45 minutes. I got home, my parents took me, don't remember that either. If you don't know, recovery is a 2 full week process. This is not optional. This is a 2-week mandatory recovery. So if you're thinking you're gonna get out of this in 1 week, you're wrong. It is a full 2-week recovery and it is intense. And I actually wrote on my notes like day by day what I was feeling, or I write it every couple of days. So I thought I would just read it to you and then elaborate on it since I guess that's easier. So days 1 through 3, sleepy, felt like I was being choked, had to pretty much sleep upright, only breathed out of my nose, extremely hard to talk, couldn't open my mouth much. Ate applesauce and jello, pain meds made me extremely nauseous, and on night 2 I threw up. The next few days were followed by a lot of nausea. I switched over to Tylenol on day 3. No more applesauce or jello after throwing up. Your throat is just very, very swollen and you can't really lie down to sleep because you can't breathe out of your mouth. I pretty much was only able to breathe out of my nose, and even then it was still hard, and I would just have to sleep like this, upright. I wasn't really able to sleep on my side or on my belly or on my back. I would just have to literally like lounge like this and sleep, which is not too bad, especially when you're on the pain medication because it kind of just makes you sleepy and you fall asleep. I remember the first day I was really fine about talking and it was fine. But after the second day, I remember it became really, really hard to talk, and I pretty much just was able to like moan and groan, and somehow my mom understood me, but I remember I couldn't really open my mouth much. Before the surgery, I stocked up on applesauce, jello, yogurt, popsicles, coconut water, everything that I thought I would be eating. And I did. I ate applesauce and jello consistently for the first 2 days. Everything was great. But then I had a night where I got this overwhelming sense of nausea. I felt like I had to throw up, and I did. The pain meds that I got were very strong, obviously, and they just did not agree with me. I took food with every single med round that I would do. I was taking antibiotics in the morning and at night, and then you're taking pain medication every 4 hours. So I was taking food with every single time I would take any sort of medication, and my body still could just really not handle it. And I basically just threw up jello and applesauce, and I don't know if this is just me, but after I throw up something, I can't really eat it again for like a minute. I had to switch over to some different type of food. That was days 1 through 3. So days 3 through 4, I felt much more pressure in my ears and head these days. Nausea was down. I started eating mashed potatoes, some Hawaiian bread, and coconut milk yogurt. This helped. Most of the times I didn't want to eat anything but forced myself to take the pain meds and eat. Tried talking more, it was not fun. You're just not really hungry and you just don't want to really put anything in your body, especially because I was so nauseous. I just felt like anything I put inside, I was just gonna vomit it back up, and it was not fun. My pain in the first couple of days were not super extreme, and I think that just had to do with the fact that I was drinking so much water, so much ice water, that it was insane. The doctor does tell you before you obviously go ahead with the surgery that if you don't want to take the pain meds that he gives you, because they're very, very strong, you don't have to, you can take Tylenol. But most people do obviously take the stronger pain meds because you will need them. And I'm glad I did take them, but honestly my stomach just could not handle it and my body could not handle it. So I decided to switch over to Tylenol extra strength, and I still took it every 4 hours. I did switch over to mashed potatoes and Hawaiian bread, and you're not really supposed to have solid foods or anything that's thick, and I did basically. I had my mom run out and get me Hawaiian bread, and I had her get me mashed potatoes, and I just needed something that was a little bit more carby with all the meds that I was taking and antibiotics, just because my nausea was so bad. And it worked for me. I don't know if it's gonna work for everybody. I have had people tell me that they could only drink water, they could only have things like applesauce or broth or something like that, like a very strict liquid diet. I was able to eat mashed potatoes by the 3rd day, so I think it's just gonna depend, but that was my personal experience. And then obviously with the Hawaiian bread, I literally was like breaking it into microscopic pieces and just putting it in my system so that I had something in my belly. I also felt a lot of pressure in my ears. I felt a lot of pressure in my head. It felt like I had a sinus infection minus my nose being congested, but like my ears, I felt like I had someone sitting on either side of my ear. I had a massive headache. I just felt a lot of pressure, which is really normal because obviously this is all connected. Days 5 and 6, these days became a tad bit more painful in the middle of the night and in the mornings. The dryness of my throat made it really difficult and painful to swallow. After a while of drinking water and talking, it became a bit easier, and during the day the pain levels were fairly low. Still, swallowing was difficult and I had head and ear pain, but it was manageable. I started to become a lot more hungry and try to eat some very soft vegan mac and cheese. I started lowering my pain medication down to 1 dose at night to nothing. So I know I had the disclaimer in the beginning of the video, but this is kind of something where I want to talk about because everybody is different. So I did decide by day 5 that I didn't really want to be on any pain medication. I've never been the person, even with headaches, I don't want to take Advil. I would just rather drink water and be in a dark room and whatever. I just did not like being on the pain medication, and I didn't even like being on Tylenol. It just did not make my body feel good, and I just did not feel normal. So I basically was just taking the pain medication starting day 5 at night, because you start developing these really crazy white scabs. You know that when you have like a scab on your hand or something, it's like purple or red. These are white and they're like mucousy, and they coat the little places where, you know, you got your tonsils removed. And it's really important that you drink a lot of water because that will kind of soothe your throat and keep it really moist all the time. Have a humidifier. That's a tip I was gonna give you later, but I'll just give it to you now. Humidifier is key. But in the middle of the night when you're sleeping, you're obviously not drinking water. You're not coating your throat constantly. I was drinking from this water all the time, and my mom was really on me about drink your water, drink your water, drink your water, because it will help you. But in the middle of the night when you're trying to sleep, your throat obviously is gonna get really dry and it's really gonna hurt. And I think that was probably the most pain that I had felt during this experience besides the nausea. As far as my throat goes, that was something that I had to keep an eye on, and that meant setting an alarm every couple of hours just to wake up in the middle of the night and drink water, because if I didn't and I woke up, I would just start crying from how bad it was. During the day, again, if I was drinking water, if I was doing what I needed to do and resting and all that stuff, my throat was fine and it didn't feel too bad. I didn't actually write anything for the rest of the days after day 6 because honestly things were pretty steady. The only thing that I will say is I think around day 7 or day 8 I did experience a little bit of bleeding, which is normal. So basically when you have the scabs, the way that they fall off is just from eating food or naturally kind of just like spitting it up. In the middle of the night, my throat got dry and I think something just kind of cracked a little bit and I started bleeding, which is normal. And you just kind of swish water in your mouth and spit it out and it should be fine. But if you're pooling blood, then you need to go to the ER because you could potentially hemorrhage. It's really important to have somebody with you, especially during the nighttime, because in case of an emergency, you just never know. And this is a really serious surgery, especially if you're an adult, because the recovery is not easy at all. So pretty much by day 8, I was eating solid foods. I would just have to chew it up really, really fine. I hated having to eat mashed potatoes and applesauce and yogurt for every meal. It was the worst, especially being someone who loves food. I was just so hungry for a burger or steak or I don't know, just something more like hearty. So I started kind of introducing that back a little bit more, but I would just have to chew it up really, really finely. During the 2 weeks, I did absolutely zero physical activity. I was in bed. And it's really important that you stay in bed and get rest because you don't want to rip any of the scabs, because that's when it can be very dangerous and you can bleed a lot. So you want to make sure that you're just resting as much as you can and really taking time for yourself to just recover? I'm gonna go ahead and answer some of the questions right now. I feel like I'm forgetting parts of the recovery, and if I answer questions, maybe I can remember more. How long did it take you to fully recover, and did your throat bleed at all during the healing? So it took full 2 weeks for me to recover. I think the scabs fully came off right after the 2-week mark. And yes, I did bleed one time at night, super minimal. I think it just got really dry and a little piece of the scab came off. I just swished some water around and you're fine. How swollen did your uvula get? I hear it can swell to the size of a grape after surgery. It got really big. And again, that's kind of the reason I felt like I was being choked, just because your throat gets so swollen. Usually when I have tonsil problems, my uvula always swells. So let's say this is my uvula. My uvula actually sits on my tongue. That's how low it drops because of how like swollen it gets. And I can just play with it on my tongue. Isn't that weird? It's crazy. Did you ever get tonsil stones? Yes, which is actually so crazy that I didn't even know that I've had tonsil stones since I was 8 years old until a couple months ago. But if you don't know what tonsil stones are, they're basically like food particles mixed with saliva, kind of like calloused over. They're disgusting. They taste and smell absolutely foul, and they sit inside your tonsils or in the little tonsil pockets, like kind of holes. Ever since I was 7 or 8, I started to get these little pieces of what I thought was food in the back of my throat that I kind of like push forward, and I would take them out, and it looks like this big. It looks like a small little pebble, and it's like a tan color. And if you want a visual, just Google it, but it literally looks like a little pebble stone. I always thought it was like food from the back of my teeth, or I don't know. I just never understood how they got there, but they always were so gross. They smelled so bad, they tasted bad, because it's basically saliva, food, callousing in your tonsils and then popping out. And I don't know. I never knew what they were, but they were disgusting. And then a couple months ago, when I was doing some research, I realized that I've had tonsil stones my entire life, and they are disgusting. Is it worse than having your wisdom teeth out? 1000%, this is way worse than having my wisdom teeth out. My wisdom teeth compared to this was a walk in the park. This is an intense surgery, and if you are planning on this being something that's really easy, think again. This is intense. What was your experience right before the surgery? I was so excited. I remember everybody asking me, are you nervous? I was not nervous one bit. I was so excited. I think especially when you know you need something so bad and it's something you've been waiting for so long, you're just so excited. And I think that's also something that really helped me in my recovery. My mentality going into it of being so excited and just knowing that whatever the recovery may have in store for me, that I'm doing something so good for my body and I'm doing something that's gonna help me in the long run. It just made the recovery go so much quicker and so much smoother. So I was very excited. I had pretty much no nerves. Obviously when you get into the surgery room, like you're a little bit kind of jittery, but overall I was so excited. What was the hardest part of the recovery? For me personally, it was the nausea, which I think is gonna surprise a lot of people because the throat pain is bad, but I have experienced a level 10 of throat pain. In January, I had one of the worst cases of strep that I've ever had. I had multiple rounds of antibiotics, it didn't work. I took a steroid shot and it didn't work. I literally had to have my tonsils drained to see if it was an abscess because it was so bad. It took over my entire body. And that was the most pain that I'd ever felt in my throat and just in my body in general. I will never forget that. And I think I was expecting that to be the recovery, and it was way less than that. But again, I think there were a lot of factors of why my recovery was very smooth. Thank you to my doctor who took them out. With that being said, I think the nausea was the worst because I cannot do nausea. Why was your voice so different for some time after surgery? I feel like my voice still kind of goes into ins and outs of it sounding normal and not, but you have a lot of stuff in your throat and it's swollen, so it's just like not gonna sound the same. It will get better over time. I remember the first even couple of days, my dad could not handle being around me. He would just imitate how I was speaking because it was so absurd, but your voice will definitely change and then it'll go back to normal after time. Do they still give you ice cream for the recovery? I got mine when I was 6 and I did. No. So this is actually something that I was not expecting, but ice cream is not something that you wanna buy. Dairy, for that matter, is not something that you wanna buy because anything that has dairy kind of will make you produce a lot more mucus, and you don't want that because you want to be able to like swallow water, and you don't want to have like a bunch of thick layers of mucus in your throat. So ice cream was definitely not the move, and not something that I would encourage anybody to get during this recovery process. Did your breath smell? I'm going to enlighten you and maybe disgust you, I don't know, but this I was not expecting. So when you develop the scabs, they're sitting in the back of your throat and they're, you know, basically rotting, in my opinion, in the back of your throat. By day 7 or 8, I woke up and I felt like I had just taken a bite out of a zombie, and that is what my mouth tasted like. It's the worst taste and smell I have ever had in my mouth. And I feel like a lot of people don't talk about how bad the taste and the smell is from the scabs. I remember calling my mom crying because I could not get the taste to go away. I would breathe, I taste it. If I drank water, I tasted it. I would chew on gum or have a mint, I would still taste it. Anything I did, I could taste this like zombie blood, flesh. It is the worst thing in the world. I feel like I gave a lot of tips during the video. I thought I was gonna like run through a list, but I kind of ended up just incorporating them into the video. But the last thing that I didn't really talk about is the spit cup, which is so weird, but it's so crucial. I had a little mason jar by me at all times, and any single time my mouth would pool with saliva, you basically just spit. And I know that kind of sounds gross, but after the surgery, you start to produce an excessive amount of saliva, I found. And most of the times I didn't want to swallow it because I didn't want to swallow it all unless I was drinking ice cold water or something that was like really gonna coat my throat and make it easy to like slide down. So I had a spit cup with me at all times. A cup is really easy to get, but I just thought it'd be a fun tip to know that I did that, and you might have to do that as well. I feel like I'm forgetting things, but my brain's kind of scattered because this whole procedure and recovery process was like so intense and lengthy. But if I did miss anything or you guys have any more questions, leave me a comment down below and I will for sure try to answer as many as I can and write back to you guys. But I think that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed or maybe learned something or just got more insight onto my tonsillectomy experience. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you liked it. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.